Hi there, this is day 2 of week 1 of Digital Studies 101, and I'm here with another video to kind of take you through some things. Obviously this video is meant for students in the class, but it's open and public on YouTube, so anyone can watch it. So today we have a number of things to do, you have a number of things to do, and I'm just going to talk through this. This will be a bit of a shorter video, I hope, than yesterday's, and actually I don't remember how long yesterday's was, but I'm going to try to move through these things pretty quickly and not do a lot of editing on this. The idea with it being a video, of course, is that you can always pause something if you have a question about it and ask that question in Discord. So here are your main goals. So yesterday, hopefully you thought about and chose and researched and signed up for a domain on UMW Domains. If not, you should do that first before proceeding through any of the work for today, because that's important. If you have a question about a domain that you're trying to decide if you want to sign up for it or not, please ask. I will love to give you some feedback on that, so that's something you can do. Again, Discord is the place to do those things. I am going to be live streaming again today at 1 p.m. I'm running way behind on things, so I'm struggling to catch up, but I'm going to try to live stream today at 1 p.m. and see how that goes. In terms of the timing, didn't get a lot of viewers yesterday, so maybe people are wanting to do things later in the afternoon. I noticed a lot of people were online later in the afternoon yesterday, so we'll try 1 to 3. Maybe that works better for you all too. But I also am going to be embedding this video on this page here. So today your main goals are to set up a way to post content on your website, actually do post some content on your website, start customizing it, and then start thinking about the digital creativity modules. So I'm going to talk about all those things here in this video over the next few minutes. So first of all, before even thinking about kind of what you're doing with your website, it's important to understand what a URL is and what you're doing with that. So far you have one aspect of your URL, which is the domain name, and you've already chosen that. You can't do anything about that, but what we're going to be doing is building the rest of your website, like building some things with that domain. And there's some things to think about in terms of the architecture, the arrangement of that structure. So the URL is the way to explain and show that structure. One thing to keep in mind is that in computers, the name of a file equals its location. Names are locations, and that's true on any computer file system, like the one you're using to watch this video, like the one that UMW Domains uses to serve your website. These are all computers, and each file on that computer has a name, and that name actually contains its location information in it. When you are building your website, you're deciding where you want to put things. It's also the same thing as deciding what those things should be called and how they should be accessed using the URL structure. So URL is an important concept because names equal locations. URLs are always there. Now this is something that you have in your browser. I'm using Firefox. The URL is this part. I'm going to take myself on a journey here. It's up at the top here, the address bar. That's the URL. If you're using Safari, you won't actually see all of that information. So this is a good reason to only use Firefox or Chrome, maybe Edge, I don't know, but definitely Chrome and Firefox are going to be superior web browsers for doing any kind of web work, so I definitely recommend using that. If you're a Mac user and you're using Safari, you're going to have a harder time with certain aspects of understanding what your website is doing. It'll still work, but you might have a harder time with it. So just an FYI, try these things out, and you might have a better time with it. Okay, so URL. This is an abbreviation I've been using, as this says here. URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. You might also see sometimes URI as basically a synonym, but that's the idea. This is locating resources in a uniform way. That's what the URL is doing. It's also sometimes just commonly referred to as a web address. Sometimes you'll see people just use that term, and it basically is the same thing. But you notice that address, like your home has an address, your web page has an address as well, and you need to know it. You need to be able to tell it to other people. That's what we're doing when we are putting it together. So I know this is all very abstract, but it makes more sense once you start getting into it. Okay, so let's take a look at this. This is a very long URL, and this is a typical URL in some ways, but it has a couple of things that I wouldn't recommend. I'll just read it out. It's http://dgst101.zackwayland.net/blog/hello-world.html. So this is a URL. I actually don't know if there's anything at that URL. I don't remember, but this is a URL. This is a location of a particular web page file on my website. There are lots of parts to this that are important to know about and to help you decide how you want to actually proceed with this. So I want to break down the different parts of this very long URL. Each of these different sections has a particular meaning and plays an important role in determining like what's there and where things are and how you've added it and everything. So let's go into it. So first of all, the HTTP, that's the protocol. It stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. That's the basic underlying protocol of the web. And the protocol is just how a protocol is a way for computers to talk to each other, and a hypertext protocol is the protocol invented by Tim Berners-Lee and open sourced in the early 90s, and the thing that makes the entire web possible and everything else that comes with it. So HTTP is a super important protocol. There are other protocols like FTP and BitTorrent and Gopher, but HTTP is the one that you're using most of the time. Okay, so way on the other side, the .html at the end of that, just above my head here, that's a file extension, and that determines what kind of file is being served, what kind of file is being accessed, and that tells both computers what software to use on that computer to access that file. So this HTML is a web page. I'm using a web browser to access a web page. That means that it's going to work, right, if it's an HTML file. Okay, so the file name, and this is conventionally the only part you would see. That's something that, in this case, is hello world. If you ever are in a situation where you're naming files, by the way, I always recommend naming them without spaces, like I've done here for this one. It's just hello-world, all lowercase. Spaces can be encoded in strange ways whenever you're looking at file names and file paths. Okay, so the next bit that's important is this way over here, back on the left. This is DGST 101, and this is a subdomain. So you remember my domain here is zachwhalen.net, so the subdomain goes before that. In this case, it's DGST 101, and then read together, that would be DGST101.zachwhalen.net. A subdomain is going to be how I recommend you set up your website. That's different than a subdirectory. You notice this subdirectory that's after my domain name is called blog. It's kind of not doing anything. So it's zachwhalen.net/blog is a subdirectory. Both subdomain and subdirectory have sub in them, but they are sub in a different way. Subdomain goes to the left, subdirectory goes to the right if you're looking at it in a file name structure, and they're also organized similarly on the server, but in terms of how other people access them, they are very different. So I like the subdomain method, which I'll get into in a minute. Okay, so there's also the TLD. You've already committed to this. You've already chosen a domain, but if you haven't, the TLD is the net, org, com, edu. There's a ton of these. That's the part that goes after the namespace that you've described for your domain. So in my case, Zach Whalen is my domain. .net is my TLD or top level domain that I use for that one. So that's different than zachwhalen.com, zachwhalen.org. I own both of those as well, I think. I can't remember. I think I do. I only use zachwhalen.net because I want to make sure that I'm the one that is that .net. And also, it doesn't really matter, net, org, com, edu, us, info, biz. There's a bunch of these. I usually just recommend going with whatever sounds best. And to me, zachwhalen.net has a nice ring to it because of the doubled N sound there. I don't know, it just seems good to me. Then, of course, the domain itself, so Zach Whalen. And this is the thing that I chose when I set up my domain. All right, so lots of different parts. Now, as you are getting ready to create content on your domain after you've registered it, you're going to make a choice that's going to use some of that terminology that I just showed you with respects to URLs. And you're going to have an option when you set up a blog. And I recommend setting up a blog in a subdomain. It is also okay to set it up in a subdirectory, although I recommend a subdomain. I definitely do not recommend setting it up in a subdomain and a subdirectory. And a lot of people do this because there's an option that you'll see, and if you click too fast, you'll miss it when you're setting up installing WordPress for the first time. So I really want to make sure that you see this. I don't recommend subdomain plus subdirectory. It's just confusing, and there's too many. It makes your URL much longer than it needs to be. So in this case, I would recommend something like dgst101.zachwhalen.net. If you wanted to do zachwhalen.net/dgst101, that would be okay too. And of course, substitute your own, as I explained that, substitute your own domain name for those. Whenever I say zachwhalen.net, just mentally substitute that for whatever your domain is. And then I do not recommend, for example, dgst101.zachwhalen.net/blog because it's too long. Okay, so that's some basics about setting up, just to give you some terminology for dealing with the web. In the instructions for today, I've got some other kind of graphics to talk through. Well, this graphic, but also just kind of a textual description of the pros and cons of these different approaches. There's also some resources you can access, and this is always true if you go to UMW Domains. They have a series of knowledge base pages explaining how to do a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about today, taking you through it step by step with images, screenshots of certain things sometimes, but also just textual descriptions of like, do this, do this, do this, do this. It can be a lot if you're not used to this terminology, so definitely it's okay to ask for help. If you do get stuck, you can reach out in Discord. there's a help channel in Discord. You can always ask for help too. And by the way, just so you know, there's also the Digital Knowledge Center. I'll just go ahead and type their address in here. They are available this summer. It's dkc.umw.edu, and you can book an appointment right here from their website. And what you'll do is it's a virtual appointment for the summer, and it'll be a consultation with one of the staff there, and they can take you through whatever it is you're trying to do. The staff there have all done the kinds of things that you'll be doing for DGST on 101, so they will be, and actually I don't know who the consultants are this summer, but whoever they are, they will be good at the kinds of things that you're doing, and they will be able to help you. Sometimes just having someone to talk to about a particular assignment can be a useful thing, so I definitely recommend that you do that. Okay, so I'm going to actually go through the process of installing WordPress, because that's what you're going to be doing whenever that's why you set up a subdomain. That's what you do with this. I'm going to show you that now, and then I'll talk about the creativity modules, which is the other thing for this week, and then that'll wrap this up. This is, yeah, I'm only at 10 minutes. That's not too bad. Okay, so when you first sign into UMW domains, you access this screen right here. This is cPanel, and cPanel is where cPanel stands for control panel. It's really the control panel, the mother, I don't know what the command center, I don't know, whatever metaphor I was looking for there, but it's the place where you can do basically anything to your website. You can mess up things, like there are ways you can damage your website, but it's not easy, so don't worry too much about it. The main thing that you'll be doing here is installing software. You'll be installing WordPress. There are other options, but I definitely recommend WordPress. So if you look here in this top window here is called Applications, and there is a link in here that says WordPress, so I recommend clicking that. And oops, I don't know why that selector is there. Okay, so then this is a page in a different dashboard called Installatron that is going to let you install software like WordPress. And it's a little preview here explaining what WordPress is. Go ahead and click the Install This Application button. And it takes a few seconds to load the profile. And once it's loaded, now you get to make the first and really most important choice about installing WordPress here, which is where is it going to live? And remember, when I say where, that's a location. Names are locations, so I'm naming the place where I want this to be. And the domain drop-down lets you pick whichever domain you want to put this on. You just have one. I have many on here, so let me find one I can actually play with here. Oh man, so many things. Most of these are just like demos, you know. So okay, so I'm going to put this on DGST101.net as a subdomain on DGST101.net. Actually, you know what? I'm going to back up a step. So oh man. Okay, so yeah, you can see the options here, but that's where we can put these. But I'm going to actually back up a step, and I don't have time to restart this video and redo it, but so I'm just going to plow through. You should create a subdomain before you install WordPress. So let's go and do that first. So this is back here on the cPanel dashboard. We'll get to WordPress in a minute. But first go to subdomains. So here's the domains section, click on subdomains. And I'm first going to make a subdomain. This is going to give me a location where I can put WordPress. So I recommend just naming it something like DGST 101 or maybe just DGST, whatever you want to call it. Just type it in that first field and then click out of that field. And then when you click out of the field, it'll automatically populate the value for the document root field. Leave that whatever it is. And then make sure you select a domain. So in this case, I'm going to put this, I'll do this one on elsweb.org, I guess. I'll call it DGST 101 demo for summer 83. I'm making this a super long subdomain so I can remember to delete it. I don't recommend you do that. I recommend you keep it short, but just whatever you want to do, type it in the subdomain field, select your domain from the drop down, and then and then let the document root fill in automatically, then just hit the create button. It's working, it's taking a few seconds, and once it's done, you'll see this message here. Sometimes people accidentally click that create button twice, and if you do, you get an error message, but it's okay, you can just go back and it already worked. It works fine, even though you get an error message. So this has been created. I can go back and I can now see this on my list of domains. So here it is. Don't need to do anything else with it. It's now created, and now that it is created, I can go back to Installatron again, WordPress, like I did a minute ago. Install this application. Again, it's going to take a few seconds to load it, and now I have some options. So under the subdomain dropdown, instead of just elsweb.org, I'm going to choose the subdomain that I created, assuming I can find it. So I obviously have quite a few. There it is. There's the one I created. And just, yeah, choose it from the drop down. And then this field right here, this is the important part. I have a GIF explaining how to do this in the notes for today. Delete the directory. So you're not adding this in a subdomain and a subdirectory, but just a subdomain. So delete whatever's there. Okay, so that's a very strong recommendation I have. If you've already done it a different way, you don't have to redo it, but I really, really recommend that. Another thing I recommend is down here for the administrator username and password. I recommend going ahead and changing this. You can always change it later, but I like being able to log in directly to my WordPress account on my websites after I've installed WordPress. I don't like having to go through Installatron to access the dashboard, so I'm going to go ahead and set up a username and password that I can use to access that directly. So you'll see what I mean in a moment, but that's something you can do here, and I do recommend this as well. So if you are happy with all those choices, everything else, leave it to the default. You can change it later. Hit the install button and it'll take a minute and then go through it. Now I've got lots of other applications on this particular account, so you can see lots of things there, but if you click to the task manager, you can see that it's working and installing this WordPress. Taking a minute. It takes about 30 seconds. In fact, it's probably already done. It's probably just doing some final cleanup stuff. And there we go. So now remember URL, it's a location on the web. So let's take a look at it on the web. This link is already going to take me there. So if I click on it, that'll open up to my new WordPress site. Or you can just type in the domain if you want to. DGST 101 demo for summer 23.elsweb.org is my domain that I put this on. If you've done it on dgst101.yourname.com or .net or whatever, that's what you would type in to access the WordPress site. So obviously it's a blank site now. There's just placeholder content here that you will be editing. And so to do that, you'll need to get into your dashboard. I'm not going to go through a whole WordPress tutorial today, but I do want to show you how to get to the dashboard. In my case, I can get there because I set up a username and password that I remember. I can go to /admin. So I'm looking at my address, and the address for my WordPress where I installed it, I add admin after my domain name, and now I can type in the username and password that I just created. And now I'm in WordPress. Now this is where I can create content. I would recommend creating content by creating posts, which you can see here on the left. I'm going to do a whole thing about WordPress tomorrow, but this is WordPress. When I talk about your WordPress dashboard, this is the WordPress dashboard. This is where you need to be when you're creating content for your website, which is what you'll be doing. All right, so there's another way to get here too if you did it a different way. So if you go back to Installatron and you look at the Installatron list of your websites. Where did this one go? Oh, here it is. Okay. Again, you'll have just the one, but if you look at it in this view from Installatron, this second link here, not the first one, but the second one that ends in WP admin, if you click that, that will also just take you directly to your dashboard without having to log in. Notice though, you do have to log into UMW domains first, then get to Installatron, then find it, then click it, then you get to the dashboard. So it is several steps still, but it's a decent thing to, it's another way to do it. I just noticed, by the way, I've got some really old WordPresses on this account that are way behind in terms of updates. I need to do something about that, but not for now while I'm on this video. And I do want to wrap this up soon, so I'm going to talk briefly about the creative modules for this first week. So digital creativity, you've got 3 choices, 3 modules that you can choose. There are channels in Discord for each of these. So once you've chosen one of these, type a message in that Discord channel saying, hey, I'm going to work on creative coding, or hey, I'm going to work on interactive fiction, or hey, I'm going to work on digital audio. Write a post on your blog saying what you want to do and why you chose that module. Spend some time doing whatever it is that you want to do for that module, and post it on Discord when you're done. It's kind of a 2 or 3 step process. There's a bit more to it, but today I just want to talk to you about the different options. So if you click these links, right, so creative coding, the learning objectives basically is to learn about creative coding, figure out what it is, and then just try to make your own thing. So there's a lot of different things you can do. I just noticed a few of these things. This one, make a new bot, that one doesn't actually work anymore because Cheap Bots Done Quick got shut down by Twitter recently, so that's frustrating. Quite a few things here. I mean, there's a lot of things I can add to this because I'm teaching a whole class on creative coding. But that can be fun. It's just basically messing around with code, right, and doing something interesting. I need to add a little bit more here. Another one that I think is a lot of fun and very popular is interactive fiction. So if you've never done it before, interactive fiction is basically choice-based branching narratives. So you might be familiar with this from different contexts. Maybe you've seen the Black Mirror Bandersnatch episode on Netflix, which had choices built into it. It's that kind of thing. So there are a lot of tools used for making this. Twine is the most popular one. I would recommend making something with Twine if you're interested in this module. Twine is great. Twine is a lot of fun. I recommend it. It can be fun. A couple things though, if you do want to use Twine, make sure you download the desktop app and then publish to file in a way that other people can access. I know I'm explaining some things that are kind of abstract until you get into it, but I don't recommend using this option here. Use it in your browser. Don't use that version. Do this version, and then you'll be in better shape for the things that come later. And then finally, digital audio. So if this is something you want to do, there's a lot of things obviously covered by just the domain of sound in general. Some people, when they've done this before, they've edited music using a DAW. Sometimes people will record a podcast episode. Lots of different things that you can try. The key for all of these modules is just to try some stuff out. I'm not expecting expertise. You don't need to produce something masterful. You need to try different things. And if you come up with something cool, that's great. Talk about it, share it. If you come up with something but you don't love it, that's okay too. You can talk about what you learned in the process. That's the whole key for these creativity modules. So that's a lot for today. Again, the main goal is that you have a domain already and you are going to now start putting content on that domain, which means you need to make some decisions about where to put that content, and then you need to install WordPress in that location, and then start posting on the location. This all actually culminates in the Hello World assignment, which is due at the end of the week, but you should try to do it today if you can. This is what you're doing. When you publish that welcome post, that first post, submit it here in Canvas on the Hello World page. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff, obviously, but try it, do your best with it. If you have questions, please let me know. Again, I'll be streaming on Twitch this afternoon, and I'm always available electronically if you need to. If you send me a message, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Turns out teaching 2 classes at once at the same time in the summer is a lot of work, so I'm very busy, but I will get back to you as soon as I can when I see those messages. Okay, so thanks for watching, and hope you have a great day. Bye.